Hi everyone, Quiveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we are going to take a look at the night sky for later December. So we will start with sunset here on the 16th. The sky hasn't changed too drastically, but we are going to push through the month a little and take a look at some of the things that we haven't covered in previous videos. So just as the sun sets, we have the square of Pegasus up nice and high just above the planet Saturn. So very early in the evening, we've got plenty of interesting things to see. Just ranging across the sky here, we've got the square of Pegasus, the constellation of Andromeda, the constellation of Perseus, and the constellation of Auriga, all spread out from the northeast stretching up to the south, where the sky is already getting dark as the sun goes down. And while we push a little bit later, the sky will continue to darken and we'll get Jupiter into the sky nice and early, and Orion as well. So we'll push a little bit later just to get all of Orion in. And by a little bit later, here we are at 8:15, still nice and early in the evening. Now that we're in true darkness, we've got even more constellations visible. So continuing that chain from Pegasus, Andromeda, Perseus, Auriga, we're now coming down into Gemini with Jupiter over in the east. Underneath Auriga and Perseus, we do have the bright star Aldebaran for Taurus, and then Orion just coming up towards the eastern horizon. In the city in particular, this region of the sky is going to look pretty empty, but there are other constellations in here like Cetus, which pretty much covers the space between these two brighter stars here. So we'll bring up the constellations and you can see there Cetus taking up a huge chunk of the sky. Under the more famous, arguably, Aries and Pisces, but those constellations are pretty tough to see themselves, and Aries in particular isn't very big. Just before we push all the way on to morning time, I hope that some of you caught the Geminid meteor shower that peaked on the 13th and 14th, so the weekend just passed. There's still a couple of meteors coming from this as we push a little bit later into December, but they will pretty much be exhausted, by the time we come through to the 16th and 17th, really way down from their potential peak of 120. Luckily, there is another meteor shower coming up later in the month, but before we push later in the month, we'll get ahead towards morning time. Now that we're through to the middle of the month, Mercury isn't going to be as prominent in the morning. It's still there, but certainly not as easy to see or as bright as it would have appeared during its greatest elongation back at the beginning of the month. Looking at the sunrise sky here, and we'll go back a little bit just so that it's still dark. Looking at the sky here at 7 o'clock, and the sky is reasonably dark here in the city. We have, of course, up at the zenith now, the Plough or the Big Dipper, arcing down to Arcturus and Bootes or Bootes, and then spiking on to Spica in Virgo, taking up this area of the sky. Corvus is the nice diamond just underneath it. And we have Leo up nice and high towards the southwest. Of course, Cancer the Crab must be in between Leo and Gemini. Pushing all the way through to sunrise, we do have that little glimpse of Mercury, but definitely not seeing any Venus anymore. So it is out of the morning sky, or at least it won't be visible to us. Coming all the way back to sunset, we're going to go through to the solstice. So through to the shortest day of the year, longest night of the year. So we've got our sunset nice and early, just a little bit after 4 o'clock. And we've got bright things emerging in the sky, even in the city, by just 5:30. So we have those same constellations visible that we were looking at previously. But we're going to turn around to the north here and take a look for the radiant of the Ursid meteor shower. So here it is up in Ursa Minor. It doesn't say the Ursa Minorids. It just says, oh, well, there's an example. It just says the Ursids. That meteor can't have been one of the Ursids because it was going in the direction of this radiant instead of away from this radiant, which is really what the radiant means and how we know that meteors are part of the same shower. They come from the same radiant in the sky. So taking a click on the Ursids here, they're peaking there on the 22nd of December, so just after the solstice. But we're going to move from sunset on the 21st through to just after midnight, the beginning of the 22nd here. We can see that there's already a zenith hourly rate of 3 to 13, maybe seeing 1 to 3 here in the city, and because the Ursids they are low in the sky, but they're not that low in the sky. They're a little bit lower than the North Star there. By morning time, they'll be higher, closer to the zenith. So that's going to give us a better view. As we push through the night, we can see the maximum climbing, the current zenith hourly rate, and the amount that we're potentially seeing in the city. We can see that going up, and we can see the radiant coming up above the North Star there. There it is approaching coming close to at least what would be its higher rate. So instead of 10 to 50, we're seeing 6 to 29 and 2 to 10 here in the city. We will push out to the countryside because that should give us a better view of this meteor shower. And here we go, seeing 5 to 26, which really isn't too bad. Definitely more of a medium meteor shower compared to the very impressive Geminid meteor shower and other big meteor showers during the year. So we can see that number, those numbers still rising as we come through the day on the 22nd. So it's very likely that that meteor shower will reach its peak while the sun is up. Yep, for us here in Ireland. So if we go back just a little bit there to just before sunset, I hope that you can see it. The zenith hourly max is there at 10 to 50 and the current zenith hourly rate is there at 10 to 50. Locally, that's giving us 7 to 36 because this radiant is so much lower in the sky than the zenith would be. So that means that once it actually gets dark again on the 22nd, we're still seeing more than we did just after sunset. We're seeing there 9 to 45 with us really seeing about 6 to 30. This means we would be seeing 9 to 45 if this radiant was at the zenith, and this is how much we're actually seeing given how low it actually is in the sky. We can see there a little bit away from where the zenith would be. But it looks like we are catching the beginning of that shower on the 21st and then the end of that shower on the 22nd. It's going to continue disimproving here as we go through the 22nd, but it remains higher all the way through, by the looks of it here, the night of the 22nd, or at least all through the beginning of the 22nd, reaching zenith hourly rates that we would see closer to the sunset. So it starts with higher rates than we start with and then finishes with, about the same lowness that we began with on the 21st. So that's the Ursid meteor shower coming up really the night after the solstice, but you can begin seeing them the night of the solstice. So in particular, if you didn't manage to catch the Geminid meteor shower, which is just past, and it is one of the best ones, the best one according to many metrics that we get in the year, if you didn't manage to catch that, you can at least head back and check out one of the recent videos on this channel where I go through the Geminids and their parent body. Now that we're out in the countryside, and here we are at 6 o'clock. We'll go back a little bit just to make it fair. On the shortest day, the longest night of the year, here at just 5:30. There's still plenty of sunset glow in the sky, but we have the summer triangle still up nice and visible. We're going to have parts of the outer limb of the Milky Way. We've got Pegasus and Saturn now very much above the south, really in the middle of the sky, and those same patterns of stars continuing down towards Auriga and just the beginning of Gemini. But we're getting much better view of the Hyades in Taurus, and the Pleiades are very, very clear as soon as the sun goes down. We'll keep pushing through to actual darkness. We may as well come up to, here we are at just 7:30. Just 7:30, and we've already got a really good level of darkness. We've got that glow of the Milky Way coming up through the summer triangle, although it is nice and low in the west, and we're still very, very early. Even though we're looking at this pitch black sky, it's still only 7:30. It wouldn't even be fully dark at this time during the summer. We've got a fantastic view of Orion, even the lion skin portion of Orion here at the front, what many people would consider the bow of the hunter, even though it's usually depicted as a lion skin. We've got Gemini very, very clearly, and if we continue tilting around, a really nice view of Ursa Major in its totality. Very low in the north. To get a better view, we will have to wait again until morning time. Coming up to morning time here, and we'll go through to a reasonably similar time from Orion rising to Orion setting, so we're through to about 6:30. We'll come back to just 6 o'clock so that Orion is still on the horizon, partly set instead of fully set. So here we go, just coming up to 6 o'clock in the morning. We've got Leo nice and clear, but not as distinct as some of the constellations we'd see in the evening. We're going to have to wait for the sun to come up and block out some of the fainter stars. We've got part of the summer triangle already back up in the morning because it's been down for most of the night, because we are now in midwinter. We're here on the 23rd, close enough to midwinter to have a similar effect. Taking a look at this region of the sky here, just under Leo, the constellations aren't quite as famous, but we should be seeing part of what I believe is a snake. Yeah, so there are multiple snakes in the sky. Yeah, that's the female water snake. I would prefer these names in Latin. There we go. In their native Latin, hopefully. There we go. Hydra, the water snake, as distinct from Serpens cauda and Serpens caput, which we have over here, Serpens being carried by Ophiuchus. So one of the many snakes that we get to see in the sky. We can sort of see that snake-like shape, but it's not one of the more famous or easy to notice constellations. And through here to the morning time, we still just barely have Mercury. It's still just about clinging on there in the morning, though of course much, much lower. And with the sun coming up, blocking up some of the fainter stars, we can see those shapes of the more famous constellations even more easily, and our shape of Ursa Major there nice and high in the sky. So that's some stuff that's coming up for the end of December. I will take a closer look at the very end of December, the 25th to the 31st, in a future video when we're a little bit closer to the end, but just to keep you up to date on what you're going to be able to see for the longer, darker nights of the year. And I hope you do get to see as many of these objects as possible. I hope you see the Ursid Meteor shower, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do like it, and if you like this kind of content, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can also check out my website, creevinscontent.ie, where you can read this information. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you back here next time.